Would you like to accelerate your career and reach your full potential in just minutes a day? Welcome to the LEADx Show with New York Times best-selling author and Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Kevin Kruse.
Happy Friday, everyone. Kevin Kruse here, and I'm fighting a cold, so if I sound extra nasally, that's why. And I also just finished recording 19 podcast interviews in 36 hours. Yep, you get them daily, but I batch them into 2 days at the beginning of each month. So I'm a massive introvert after doing that much chatting and schmoozing. I feel like I've been hit by a truck or maybe dragged off an airplane by United Airlines. Ba-da-bump, right? Couldn't resist that one with all that's going on this week. And instead of doing a management question of the week or productivity question, I've got a whole stack of those questions you've sent in and keep them coming. I was getting asked a lot about, my response to United, and I probably would have written a column on it if I hadn't been doing all these podcast interviews. So I just want to give my 2 cents on that. But first, I want to congratulate you again for putting in another week, being proactive with your personal development and your career. I spoke to, one of my interviews was with Catherine Minshew, the young co-founder of The Muse. You're going to hear that interview soon. And she says, that's really their number one message at their site and their new book that's coming out. You have to be in control of your own career. You have to be the CEO of your career. James Altucher always talks about you have to choose yourself. And I had another great chat. I really, first time I ever spoke to her, Tara Nicole Nelson has a book called Transformational Consumers. Again, you'll get that interview soon. And, she says that there's a group of people out there that, they want to transform. They want to get better, health, wealth, relationships, whatever it is. But there's only about half the consumers out there that want to change, want to get better, and actually do something about it. I think actually that half number might be high. I'm surprised it's that high. But you are in that group. You are a transformational consumer. So I applaud you for that. Now, I do want to give a shout out to those who left a review on iTunes for this show. That continues to be the most important thing you can do to support the show is go subscribe and leave, a 1 or 2 sentence review, because the more reviews we get on iTunes, the more likely iTunes is to recommend the show to new listeners. So one came in, J. Caruso 24 wrote, I listened to the LEADx show on the way to the office. It's a great way to get my mind ready for a productive day. And Tony Subway wrote, now Tony, I hope your last name really is Subway. I doubt it, but that is cool. I love that name. Tony Subway. I want you to be my friend just so I can say like, hey, yeah, I was hanging with Tony Subway over the weekend. Anyway, Tony wrote, I've been a manager for about 5 years, but when I was promoted to head of our company management team, I hit a wall. I decided to try and educate myself. That's when I discovered Kevin and a lot of his great tips. So J. Caruso 24, Tony Subway, I want to send you a free LEADx t-shirt to thank you for those reviews. Just send me your, old-fashioned snail mail address. I'm at kevin@leadx.org, and we'll send you out some swag. And LEADx family, remember, if you want to join our ambassador program, just subscribe, leave a short review, and then let me know. We'll send you a link to join our private Facebook group. We do book giveaways. This month's raffle is for an Amazon Echo. You can take the Echo or take the cash. And why wouldn't you do it? It's cool. So let's get to the question. Last week I answered, how to have a productive morning when you're already waking up at 5 and have a long commute to work. This week I'm giving my spin on the United Airlines incident. So look, unless you were like that girl they just found in India who's been living with monkeys all her life. That really happened, by the way. You probably already know. United Airlines had a full flight flying out of Chicago. They had 4 crew members that they wanted to get on that flight to get to wherever they were going. They offered incentives up to $800, or some people are saying $1,000. And when no one would take it, they picked 4 people, we're not exactly sure how, to throw off the plane. So their crew could get on. And 3 of those people, gave up their seats. One dude just wouldn't leave. I mean, he just wouldn't comply. So United called airport security. Security showed up, dragged them down the aisle. Of course, everyone's got their phones out this day and age. It went viral and, just created like instantly. Everybody knew this is a huge customer service disaster, huge PR disaster, a huge brand disaster. And the next day, the CEO, Oscar Munoz, I can't say his last name, he sent an internal email to his staff, which again, this day and age, you've got to assume everything is public. Nothing's going to stay private. So within 2 seconds, this internal email gets leaked, and he basically said, hey, bad thing happened yesterday, and our crew, our employees followed procedures, and it wasn't United that dragged him down the aisle. It was those security people in that airport. And hey, let's remember to treat everybody with respect. Totally tone deaf email that most people thought was, defending the employees, putting the blame on the security personnel, and that was kind of it. Now listen to this, and I predicted this as soon as that video went viral. Their stock tanked on the stock market at its worst, 4%. They lost $1 billion in investor capital, investor value in one day. Bad incident, worst CEO response, they lose $1 billion. Now, it has recovered a little bit in the last few days, but it's still down compared to the stock market. It's way down compared to American Airlines. So what do I think about all this? And listen, friends, agree to disagree. We can disagree without being disagreeable, as they say. Friends, colleagues, everybody's wondering what I thought. So here's what I think. First of all, on the issue of overbooking these planes, they all do it. So it's not just like United does it. And they do it, they overbook because passengers typically have tickets that are refundable or changeable for a low fee. And so the problem is, we all pick a flight and then just don't show up for it and take a later flight, and they're stuck with empty seats. Now, normally I would actually say, hey, in the spirit of being a cold-hearted capitalist, look, it's their company. If they want to overbook, they can overbook. And as customers, we can choose to fly a different airline or take an Amtrak, right? So it's just the way it goes. However, this is a heavily regulated industry. And, there's only so many flights that can go to these airports, and there's safety issues. It's heavily regulated. And the problem is there isn't that much competition any longer. We can't not fly United very easily, out of a lot of places. I fly American almost exclusively out of Philadelphia because it's one of their main places. And I like American, but it would be hard for me to fly and get to where I need to go, by not flying them. So the bigger issue on that is that the government has agreed to too many of these airline mergers. I mean, they should have not agreed to some of them, and they should stop that so that there's room for new, smaller airlines to show up and provide, better service and better prices. Anyway, that's not the main issue. A lot of people are mad that it was employees that they were booting passengers to get these crew member on. I actually get that because they were trying to get, I'm assuming, these crew members to the next airport so that they could go staff another airplane. So yes, you're inconveniencing 4 passengers in Chicago, but you might be inconveniencing 400 passengers on some other leg of the flight if they can't get their crew there. So it stinks, but I actually understand that business decision. Now that crew or that staff that called security to get the guy off the plane, I'm sure they had no idea that they were going to drag that guy down the aisle when they called security. But they should have known because, whether you're a cop, like I've got tons of cop friends and military friends and security friends, a lot. And they are trained they often, to go alpha in situations. You show up secure, confident, and with a sign of force. And most people will back down from that. So they're trained, it's called challenge or stand up as like the first thing they do. So these, security guys who are bored out of their mind and didn't have anything to do for however many months in Chicago are told there's a passenger who will not get off our plane. They show up. They give the guy an order to get off the plane. He doesn't go. They're going to drag him off the plane. And that's that. And on a personal note, I will always comply with law enforcement or security or whatever, because, these are hardworking people who are trying to do their job too. And if you don't comply, somebody's going to get hurt. Probably I'm going to be the guy that gets hurt, but maybe, in the scuffle, a passenger gets hurt. Security guys get hurt. So look, you can always sue people later. You can always file a complaint later, whatever it is, don't challenge law enforcement. There's no good that's going to come from that. Anyway, the real thing here about this story is that tone-deaf email the CEO sent, 24 hours later. Now, I cannot believe that a CEO, an executive who's achieved this level of success, was that stupid about the PR and brand damage that occurred and how bad his email was going to be interpreted. If I was a board member of United, I'd be like, who is our CEO of this company that he wouldn't realize this? And doesn't he have an internal marketing and communications department they would have worked with on that email? So is it that he's a lone ranger and he decided to respond and write that email himself? Or is it that his communication department is incompetent? Either one, that's not good. And every one of these big companies, they have a crisis agency, crisis consultant on speed dial. Why didn't they activate it? There's no way a crisis consultant would say that's a good email to send the next day to your employees. So I think it was in one of Tom Peters' books. He says, when you fly in an airplane and you feel a piece of chewing gum on the bottom of your armrest, well, that's bad enough, but it makes you wonder, what else is wrong with this plane? Is there something wrong with the engine? Hey, I got to tell you, there's something wrong with the engines. If that's their CEO, it makes me wonder, how are they doing on cash flow? How are they doing on maintenance? How are they doing on strategic thinking? I mean, this CEO has got a wire loose somehow. So it would not surprise me if this guy is fired, if the board is already talking whoa, we got to move to plan B here, because this level of incompetence, it just blows my mind. The email he should have sent, it's very simple. He should have just sent an internal email that said, I screwed up. Now listen, everybody knows he wasn't at the gate. He didn't make that call, but instantly you're winning over people saying it's on me. The buck stops with me and I'm taking responsibility for it. He said, I screwed up. The crew followed procedures and we can now see that our procedures are flawed. We should never forcibly have to remove a passenger from an airplane. And he could have just continued to say, we are following up with all passengers on that flight to make this right. And we've begun an immediate review of our overbooking and, voluntary, whatever, give up your seat policy. And very important that he just says, effective immediately, all employees are authorized to continue offering higher and higher amounts to get voluntary, seats given up with no cap, as a way to incentivize passengers. That's the solution. I mean, this week there was that article about the family that made $11,000 in a weekend from Delta Airlines because they kept giving up their seats, but at $1,500 and higher. And so that's the ultimate problem. The policy's apparently, hey, offer up to $800 or $1,000, and if nobody's taking it, start throwing people out of their seats. Well, just scrap that policy. Look, what's it going to cost you? $2,000 a seat? $3,000, $4,000, $5,000? At some point, people are going to take it. No one's going to wait until it's $100,000 per seat. United Airlines made $3 billion of profit last year. They can afford $1, $2, $3, $5, $10, whatever $1,000 to voluntarily get people to give up their seats. They could have afforded the $25,000 it would have taken to charter a private jet to fly their 4 crew member to the other airport. So it's an easy solution. It's an easy solution, and all the airlines should really adopt it immediately. Now, the other idea, if I was running one of these airlines, don't just make it about money to get people to give up their seats, because not everybody's money motivated. And a lot of these people, especially in O'Hare, they're business travelers. So, they might not get to keep that money. Maybe it's, hey, we'll refund your ticket. Well, that goes back to the company. It doesn't go back to them. I don't care if my company gets their money back. I want to get home to my family. And so this is a persuasion problem, an influence problem. appeal to people's greater good. Say, make the offer, hey, we'll give you $1,000 cash to give up your seat and another $1,000 to the charity of your choice, or, to one of 100 charities and you get to pick, or the local, save the dog shelter, or whatever it is. So now there's also an altruistic thing. If anybody's on the bubble, or if anybody's not motivated by their own $1,000, maybe they'd be motivated if $1,000 goes to, help an animal shelter or something. Or go back to the greed factor, but make it something like, you give me $1,000 back, whatever, it goes in the bank account and I pay my bills. It doesn't change my life. If you said, we're going to give you $1,000 cash and a free Xbox or a free iPad or a free Amazon Echo, whatever it is, the hot electronics. Now, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, you know what? I would never buy an Xbox for myself, or I would never buy an Amazon Echo for myself, or I can't afford, an Xbox. I can't justify spending the money on an Xbox for my kid. But if the airline's going to give me one and ship it to my house, boom, I'm giving up this ticket. So it's kind of like money's not a great motivator in a lot of these. So pair it up with an altruistic thing or some kind of cool prize. So, hey, that is my rant of the week. I'm sticking to it. Send me a note. You want to hear more of my rants, leadership tinged, related to whatever's going on in the week, or you want me to stick to the bread and butter? I'd love to know. Hit me on Twitter @Kruse, or send me an email, kevin@leadx.org. And next week, I'm off to Vegas to take some casino executives' leadership skills to the next level. But don't worry, we got all the daily podcasts ready to go. We're doing a twofer on productivity. Mike Vardy, you're going to hear some weird stuff from Mike, things he does. I mean, he doesn't start his new year in January. He starts it in, I think, like September. He's got a whole reasoning for that. It's very cool. Abby Lawson has like a little hack at night that she said just changed her life. We got Corey Kupfer on negotiation and how you can negotiate better with certain specific authenticity tips. And then Jonathan Raymond, all on leadership. So, come back for the podcast next week. And hey, I hope you have a great weekend and lead your family with intent this weekend. One easy way to engage with your teenagers, for example, is let them pick where you guys are going to go out to dinner, or where you're going to get the takeout, or what movie to get from Netflix that night, or whatever that is. See, when you ask someone for their opinion, it's a form of recognition. It says, I count. I was just asked for my idea, what I think of this idea, what I would do in this situation. That's a sign of recognition. And recognition is one of the top 3 drivers of engagement at work and at home. So ask your significant other, ask your kids their opinion about things. Hey, we're thinking about doing a summer vacation here. What do you think of that? Hey, we're going to, get takeout tonight, Chinese, Indian, or pizza. What would you like to have? The more we can include people and get their opinions, the more they're going to feel connected to you in a positive way. On that note, have a great weekend, enjoy the family time, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.